Welcome to Legal Toolkit, bringing you the latest legal trends and business initiatives to help you manage your law firm. With your host, Jared Correia. You're listening to Legal Talk Network.
Welcome to another episode of the award-winning Legal Toolkit podcast here on the Legal Talk Network. If you were looking for the backup key, it's inside of a fake rock by the door. No, that's real rock. And so is that one. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. If you're a first-time listener, hopefully you become a long-time listener. And if you're Dave Dombrowski, clearly you don't give a damn about bullpens. As always, I'm your show host, Jared Correia, and in addition to casting this pod, I'm the CEO of Red Cave Law Firm Consulting, which offers subscription-based law practice management consulting services for law firms, bar associations, and legal vendors. Check us out at redcavelegal.com. I'm also the COO of Gideon Software, Inc., which offers chatbots, a first-to-market chatbot builder, and predictive analytics created specifically for law firms. Find out more at www.gideon.legal. You can listen to my other podcast, because I don't have enough to do. That's called The Lobby List. It's a family travel show I host with my wife, Jessica, and that is on iTunes. Subscribe, rate, and comment, please. But here on the Legal Toolkit, we provide you twice each month with a new tool to add to your own legal toolkit, so that your practices will become more and more like best practices. In this episode, we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, malpractice insurance. And that's probably the case because I don't practice law anymore. You know you have to have it, but you're afraid to talk about it. Fortunately, we're not. But before I introduce today's guest, let's take a moment to thank our sponsors. Answer One is a leading virtual receptionist and answering services provider for lawyers. You can find out more by giving them a call at 800-ANSWER1 or online at www.answer1.com. That's www.answer1.com. Scorpion crushes the standard for law firm online marketing with proven campaign strategies to get attorneys better cases from the internet. Partner with Scorpion to get an award-winning website and ROI-positive marketing programs today. Visit scorpionlegal.com/podcast. We would like to thank our sponsor, Thomson Reuters Firm Central, cloud-based legal practice management that streamlines your day and automates non-billable administrative tasks so you can accomplish more with less. TimeSolve is the #1 web-based time and billing software for lawyers. Providing solutions since 1999, TimeSolve provides the most comprehensive billing features for law firms big and small. www.timesolve.com. Without the E, TimeSolv.com. My guest today is Michael Carroll, who is the president of Insuring Lawyer, which he founded in 2002. Michael is a featured speaker at many national events for lawyers. He's the author of the critically acclaimed book, The Naked Lawyer. He is also the host of the Naked Lawyer podcast and television show. But I think right now he's wearing clothes. Welcome, Michael, to the big show.
Yeah, I am actually clothed.
Yes.
You better believe it. Hey, pleasure to be here, Jared. Thanks for having me.
I know we've done podcasts before, but I don't know if I've ever had you on this show, which is a travesty. So I'm glad we're fixing that.
Amen.
So let me start. I always start off with an icebreaker question. So let's talk non-legal stuff first. So I'm not ashamed to say that I think you might be the biggest Boston sports fan I know, which is almost shameful to me because I actually live in Boston and you don't. So I need to confess something to you. 2018-2019 Celtics season, not a fan. I can't wait for this season to be over. And I almost don't care if Kyrie Irving leaves in free agency. Like, the only guy on the team who hustles is Jaylen Brown. So I say make him the captain and run it back next year with the version of the team that made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. So, am I wrong? Can you talk me off the ledge and tell me what the Celtics are going to look like in 2019-2020? Please help me.
I remember I am a native New Englander. I was born in Bangor, Maine. So
give me credit for that.
My roots are there. My heart is in New England. But yeah, the Celtics, or the C's as they're affectionately known to the Boston diehards, are they're a mess. They're a mess. You're talking about one of the 10 best players on the face of the earth, in Kyrie Irving, and when he's on the floor, they're a worse team. And it just seems to be this, this cosmic or chasm or whatever it's called, divide between Kyrie and the Young Bucks. And that's, of course, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier. Hayward just looks like the complete, the land of the misfits. He just fits in nowhere. He is better when Kyrie isn't around, but it's one of those deals where I agree with you, Jared, that, Kyrie, it's going to have to be one of two things. The C's are going to have to trade Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and, another draft pick or two down to New Orleans to get Anthony Davis. Then, of course, Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving are pals. And then Hayward might be able to feel better as the third wheel, if you will, the third option. And that may work. Danny Ainge, obviously, was sitting in a position of power when the season began. Now it looks like he's in a position of weakness. And, there's a lot to do. So that team in New Orleans would love to make that trade, because when you're talking those two core guys, the young forwards being, again, Tatum and Brown, that's a team that made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. And these two young guys are only going to get better. Yeah. And New Orleans would be just licking their chops to do that. Anthony Davis, as great a player as he is, and, Kyrie Irving, as great a player as he is, the two of them haven't won anything. And if I'm not mistaken, Davis won in college, so I requalified. But if you recall,
right. Yeah.
So did a guy named Carmelo Anthony, and how's he done in the pros? He's been a flub as a pro. I mean, he's going to make the Hall of Fame. He's a great scorer.
No, I get you.
His career's his career's ending like garbage. So the C's.
I don't know if you're making me feel better.
No, I think here's what it is. It's like anything. It's the unknown, right? It's the old Al McGuire used to always say, the legendary Hall of Fame coach, Marquette, retired and national champion. He used to say, he said, I want either a yes or a no. It's the maybe I can't stand. And as a Celtic fan listening, right now, we live in the maybe. It's so confounding. It's so frustrating. In the big picture of life, it doesn't matter. We get it. We understand. This is just our selfish pleasure as spoiled Boston fans, as we win championships, like most people, change their drawers. We end up at this point, we win championships. That's what we do in Boston. But my point is very simply that the C's, there has to be a change. Either bye-bye Kyrie, or young guys do a reset and bring in Anthony Davis. So it's going to be one or the other. Just let's get this season done. Let's get beat in the first round by Indiana. Maybe get lucky, win that first round, go play the Bucks and get beaten 4 or 5, maybe even 6 games. Definitely the Bucks will eliminate them, and let's get to the off season. Let's figure this out. It's just the misery needs to end. And I want to be wrong. Want to see them make it all the way to the finals and eat our words. So we're being recorded. Hopefully it's a reverse psychology, Jared. So how's that for a short answer?
I like that. Maybe the new team slogan could be like, we live in the maybe. Hashtag we live in the maybe.
That's it.
Let's work that.
That's right.
All
Change the GE logo to maybe.
All right. Let's talk about more pleasant subjects, like legal malpractice insurance, which you're an expert at. Starting out, generally speaking, I think this is a topic that attorneys don't necessarily feel comfortable talking about, don't necessarily feel like they have enough knowledge about. So can you tell me, very generally speaking, what should attorneys be thinking about when they're choosing a malpractice insurance policy?
Well, that's an excellent question. And, you're absolutely correct. So most law firm owners, they come on, they think of, malpractice, lawyers, professional liability, whatever you want to call it, professional liability, all the same thing. And, there's a misnomer out there, especially in the 1 to 10 lawyer size firm, Jared, that, no one wants to work with that audience. And that is, there is some truth to that. And it's kind of the forgotten stepchild, as I date myself. That's a term you don't hear about much in today's society. But if you're over the age of 50, which I am, that was a common thing that, that means you're treated as second rate, if you will. And so the point is that, is the first thing that it would be critical is to find someone who's an expert. Obviously, it's self-serving to say I am. I've earned that reputation.
I can vouch for that.
Community. Well, thank you. Yeah, and it's, I've got, we have 2,900 clients, law firm clients, not lawyers, but separate law firm clients. And, it's a situation where, social proof, but find a broker like myself who specializes. It's like anything. If someone you love became very ill, or they, pro athletes, when they tear their knee, when they hurt their arm, whatever sport you're talking about, They all tend to end up down in Birmingham, Alabama to see Dr. James Andrews. Dr. Andrews has got to be in his 80s now, but they still go see him because he's considered to be the leading, orthopedic surgeon. And it'd be the same thing if someone you loved had, a heart issue. You wouldn't just, go on, again, I'll date myself. You wouldn't finger through the phone book or just jump on a search engine and, look up, cardiologists. You would start calling people you respected or your family physician if you had a great relationship with them, and you would research to find the best cardiologist if someone you loved needed to have open heart surgery or very serious surgery or brain, surgery or cancer, or whatever it may be. You would research every nook and cranny to every corner of the earth until you found the best possible surgeon that you could afford. And you would sell everything to help this loved one out. And it would be one of those deals where it's the same thing with malpractice for professional liability for a law firm owner, because if you get dragged into the fray and you've got inadequate, either due to an amateur or, a someone who doesn't specialize, not a non-expert, let me rephrase that, a non-expert who doesn't specialize in law firms, you're either going to have too low of limits or you're going to have exclusions, because remember, insurance companies are in business to make a profit, and they do not want to pay claims. And that is not they're dirty or they're bad people or whatever, but they want to offer the minimum amount of protection for the maximum legal allowable premium. Yeah. So the point is, when you're working with a non-expert, good enough is not good enough. And in professional liability cases, it isn't. But to get an expert who understands all the exclusions to fill those, which might cost at most in the hundreds of dollars a year, not a month, not a quarter, a year, to plug those, what I like to call fatal gaps, now suddenly you have something that is worthy. Therefore, if something goes wrong, you're protected properly.
Yeah, so this notion is something I wanted to follow up with you about, is this idea of like going to a local agency. I think that's really important. I have like strong feelings on this. Any insurance I get, I like to have a local agent because I think it's really helpful to have somebody that I could like call up, or in the case of like my auto insurance, I could drive like 5 minutes to go talk to somebody if I have an issue. So one part of this, which I agree with, is that you want somebody who's not just a general insurer, but somebody who specializes in legal malpractice insurance. But could you talk a little bit about some of the benefits of having like a local agent as well? Or also doing like an agency versus like going directly to an insurance company, I guess is part of the question also.
Absolutely. So in professional liability, that's always going to be written. There are always exceptions to the rule, but you're not going to have the ability like you or I or anyone listening to go straight to Geico for their car insurance or your basic, auto insurance. You can do that. If you're of that ilk and you like to, you want to do it online, great. If that works for you, that's an option. And that is a product. The spawn of that was that my peer group, the insurance agent community, was usually your country club champion. This is someone who built up a book of business and didn't go to work too often and had Myrtle and Bertha, they're manning the phones while he or she, it could be a her owning, an agency, worked on their short game at the local country club. So good guy, good gal, friendly and all that. But the point is that, there were a lot of, oversatisfied, as the cliche goes, fat, lazy, and happy, not fat shaming, just as a figure of speech, fat, lazy, and happy that, didn't do that. Now, that's how you got the direct company thing. There are, a lot of disadvantages that you don't get someone who knows you, you don't get someone who understands what your risk is and all that. So anytime you can get a local agent and you want to work with someone who works for you. See, when you are dealing with someone who's either A, works for a direct writer, not to pick on anything, but this isn't so much in the professional liability, but it will be on your office business insurance. It will be on your workers' comp. But for example, State Farm. Nothing against State Farm. I'm saying that, period.
Sorry. They're not a sponsor. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. But I'm saying the individual who works for State Farm, the insurance agent, works for State Farm. So they're an employee of State Farm. They are going to take State Farm's interest over yours. An independent agent, in turn, works for you. They're not beholden. They're not, the independent insurance. Their lineup, they don't say, you need to be in our office. We're having a quarterly meeting next Thursday at 3:00, be there in a tie and a suit. No, you don't have that. They work for you, which ultimately, because my job is to work for the listener, the law firm owner, and what have you. Now, in the professional liability world, there aren't that many local agents. If you spread out amongst the country, sure, in the big cities, there's going to be enough, just through pure numbers, there's going to be enough people that dabble in it, if not, or experts in it in Miami, in Boston, in New York, in Detroit, in Columbus, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and on and on and on, Seattle, everywhere throughout the country. But when you live in Bucyrus, Ohio, yes, that's an actual place, ladies and gentlemen. I'm in Toledo, Ohio. So
I learned something today.
Place in between. Yeah, it's spelled Bucyrus, but Bucyrus, it's how it's pronounced. There is no local agent who specializes in professional liability, but there are probably 20 law firms in the Bucyrus area. So what do they do then? So on professional liability, that is it'll never be an internet offered product. It does not renew, unlike your office business insurance renews, and your workers' comp renews, and your personal car insurance renews, and your homeowner's insurance. That renews as long as you pay your premium and you don't have a bunch of claims where they cancel you. Professional liability, in turn, Jared, and everyone listening, it expires, and it's like you reapply every year. It doesn't renew because things change. Your area of practice may change by 5%. You may add 2 lawyers in the course, one of counsel, and you hired one, or you may have, let go of 2 lawyers. So there's so many moving parts in that it needs to be basically like you're applying new. Does your length of time with the company help? Sure, when you have a claim, but ultimately it's like a new application. So on the professional liability side, absolutely. If you have someone who is an expert in your area, you're in great shape, because there's no better thing than being able, like you said, Jared, to go over and see and touch and feel and what have you. And we certainly have our strongest presence as I built this empire in, a 50-mile radius of the Toledo, Ohio area. But now we do, but we have over 400 law firms in Florida. We've got 250 plus in California. Why, again, just sheer numbers in those states where they're densely populated. But yeah, does that answer your question? I hope.
No, that was great. Very interesting. So I think we were going down this road a little bit, but I think this is kind of mystifying to attorneys as well. What are some of the major criteria that go into setting rates for law firms in terms of malpractice insurance policies?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there are a bunch. It's got to do with, do you have prior protection? So every law firm that doesn't have protection, they call it a 7-year period. It's what is known as step rating, just like stairs on taking steps up the stairs.
Yep.
So what that means is if you're listening, you've been in business, you own a law firm for 2 or 3 years, you're like, I heard it's like $7,500 minimum premium. That would be false. If you're doing revenues of, if you're just a criminal's a low. Anyway, I'll answer questions in a second. I won't get it right.
That's fine. We can get to some specifics.
You got it. The step rating is the insurance industry gives you a break. They give you a discounted rate under the premise that they're going to raise the rates over the next 7 years, because otherwise you coming in new, the assumption is you're just hanging a shingle today and they know expenses. You've got rent, you've got equipment, everything is piling on. Everything is going out. You've either taken a business loan or you've drained your savings. And the insurance industry says, hey, we don't want to pile on. We believe you're going to grow and you'll grow far more than the increase in premium, and then they have step ratings. So that's one. If you've had coverage for 7 years, then you're past that. If you switch in the 4th year from company A to company B, if you're working with broker Bob or, Billy Jean and, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and you decide to come do business with Insuring Lawyer and my team, for example,
step up to the big leagues.
You still have 5. Yeah, you got it. You would still have 3 years of the step rate left. So that's going to follow you. You can't beat that. But so that's one, good. Step rating. 2, area of practice. So if you're an intellectual, the 5 or 6 boogeymen within the legal community, if you're any of these, you're going to pay the highest rates. Intellectual property, patent, entertainment, securities, class action lawsuit type firms, and then the last one are collections. So if you're any of those 6 as your main area of practice, you are going to pay far more than someone. The low end is criminal, immigration. Those are going to be your low end. Personal injury in the middle, estate, family law, divorce, estates and all that in the middle. So anyway, the second variable is area of practice.
Yep.
The third variable is geography. So there are places in the country, Miami is a very litigious type area. So that geography pricing, it's no different than car insurance. If you live out in the country, your car insurance is less because there are less cars, less driving. If you live in a big city where there's Chicago, Miami, Detroit, Los Angeles, New York, who drives a car in New York? But my point is that if you're driving in the big cities, so many more accidents just due to sheer numbers and what have you. So you're going to pay for that. So anyway, geography is the next one. Number of lawyers. So whether they be of counsel is considered a part-time rate. So that's that, but it's the number of lawyers. So if you have one lawyer and you're in Bucyrus, Ohio, and you're doing criminal, you might pay for, and the last variable is going to be the limit of protection. And how do you determine that? This is one of the biggest faux pas I see my peer group and or law firm owners do.
Okay.
When they first start, they open their law firm, Jared, and it's the last piece to your question. They might be doing projected revenues of, for example, $100,000 a year. So they might only need $100,000 in protection in year one. But then they really knock the cover off the ball. They start working with you or like Richard James or, R. John Robbins, all tremendous. I mean, you at the top of the list, the other two, 1A, B, and C. I mean, all tremendous men, first-class pros, right? And the point is very simply that suddenly in year two, you're doing $250,000. So now you need to raise your professional liability to $250,000. It's not rocket science here, folks, because what you do in revenues is what you can be collected over time. So you want to protect that. And then in year three, you keep working with Jared. Now you're doing $500,000 in revenues. Yeah. So you want to up your protection to $500,000. I can't tell you how often I see a law firm doing $1.2 million in revenues, and they've got a $250,000 professional liability. They need $1 million minimum, preferably two, because you want to protect your interests. So the last part of it is, of course, what your revenues are is going to dictate what limit you need. And if you're doing 1.2 in revenues and you get $1 million limit, the difference between $250,000, depending again, location, number of lawyers, geography, area of practice, all the variables I just discussed, the difference is going to be nominal compared. I mean, the difference between $1.25 million and $250,000 is obviously $1 million. Your premium might be $900 more or $1,400 more, but you're making $1 million more. It's all relative. So even though you might say, holy smokes, that's a lot more premium. No, it isn't compared to what you're earning in revenue. So those are the variables that determine rate.
That's helpful. My local insurance agent is telling me we need to take a break. So here are some of the things you should buy. Firm Central, cloud-based legal practice management software for solo and small firms, provides a single online location for all of the tools you need to manage client files and perform client work, and offers unrivaled integration with Westlaw. With Firm Central, you can securely store and organize documents and case files, manage time tracking and billables, and collaborate with clients through a secure client portal from anywhere there is an internet connection. Do you feel like your marketing efforts aren't getting you the high-value cases your firm deserves? For over 15 years, Scorpion has helped thousands of law firms just like yours to attract new cases and to grow their practices. As a Google Premier Partner and winner of Google's Platform Innovator Award, Scorpion has the right resources and technology to aggressively market your law firm and to generate better cases from the internet. For more information, visit scorpionlegal.com/podcast today. Thanks for sticking around. You made the right call. I'm here talking with Michael Carroll of Insuring Lawyer, and we're podcasting about malpractice insurance. So, Mike, we talked a little bit about this in the last segment, which is like which areas of malpractice insurance cost more, which cost less in terms of practice niches I'm talking about. So let's say you're in a practice area where it's tough to get a policy. And some of those you mentioned, like patent law, for example, it's tough to get a policy or you have to pay a lot of money for that policy. How can lawyers go about getting policies in those practice areas in a way that provides enough coverage for a reasonable rate? Is there anything under the lawyer's control that they can do to affect that?
Well, sure. So the easiest answer is just take 2 weeks off and then quit. But anyway,
there you go. All right, everybody.
Add a little levity to it. No, at that point. So if you're in one of the 6, like I like to call it, the boogeymen: securities, intellectual property, patent, entertainment, pro athletes, entertainers, and such, collection, and mass tort, where you're suing, a big group. If you're in any of those areas of practice and you're starting out, it is going to be there's limited capacity. So, maybe 10 insurance companies will write for those areas of practice. And, to use poor grammar, it ain't cheap. But what you can do is based on, you can negotiate. Again, if you have an expert, you can negotiate a rate down. You can create your own step rate, because most of the companies that are writing for those areas of practice are what is known as non-admitted companies. And you'll get into this in the professional world, where a lot of lawyers will get, maybe, or law firm owners, I should say, will get a little bit of information, which is dangerous. You're a lot better off in life with no information or all the information. It's a little bit of information that drives us all nuts. And being married for 30 plus years, I'm usually best when I know nothing. If I know a little bit, it drives me nuts, So if anyone's trying to stay married a long time and I'm an impossible guy to be around, let her do her and just know nothing.
Yes, that is the key strategy to being married. This is a great podcast. We're all over the place. You want marriage advice? Here we are.
We're giving marital advice and everything. The divorce lawyers are saying, shut up. We're trying to get more business. You're healing marriages. Stop this. Stop it. Anyway, enough of my silly humor. What it comes down to is, now you want to, at this point, the non-admitted companies are able to, they're not bound to the same rigidity that an admitted company is. And by that, I mean that the admitted companies, and that again could be, the big known companies, they have filed state rates. They can't do anything. They can't change their forms. Their forms are filed with the State Department of Insurance, and they can't add things to it. But non-admitted companies
that makes sense.
Can add. They can manuscript, and they can deviate from rates. So you can negotiate that, where it's like, look, this individual came from this big firm where he or she has been practicing patent law for the last 7 years, and she was the star, blah, blah, blah. She's been awarded. She's graduated in her top 10% at Cleveland State or at Harvard or wherever. It could be an Ivy League. It could be Alabama, which is a top law school. Everyone thinks Alabama is where people go to make the NFL and play pro football. No, they actually have a top-tier law school down in Alabama, but and obviously a championship football program.
Yes.
But, great law school. And the point is, these are all things that, again, an expert can go back. So you can now work with the insuring company to say, in these tough areas of practice, hey, let's work with me. Let's grow. Let's create our own plan tailored to who I am and what my history has been. And you tell a story. No one likes, if you were trying to woo a woman or a man, you wouldn't walk up, hi, I'm Jared. Hi, I'm Mike. I'm 6'6". I weigh 241 pounds. I like to eat Cheerios for breakfast. I'm Catholic. I go to mass people would say, what, is this a joke? Is this like
Although
a
you're
TV
describing
show?
me to a T.
My point is, you go up and you tell a story. Hey, I'm Michael Carroll. I was born in Bangor, Maine. My father was a fighter pilot. My mother's from Sicily, blah, blah, blah. And you start telling a narrative story, and people, it's a lot more interesting. Whether they're interested or not, people are still entertained by the story format. It's really how we communicate it through generation to generation to generation. So it's the same thing in your marketing. Here we go, a little marketing lesson. Always don't make your marketing features and benefits. Tell a story, because that is what resonates. People make decisions based on their heart, okay? It's the emotional which will get them to buy. So it's the same idea here, that with an insurance company, do not play their game of sterility, where it's all about, if you play that game with them, they'll beat you all day long. And see, remember, I work for you, law firm owner. I know how these folks tick. Underwriters are the enemy. And if there's an underwriter listening, they'll hate me for saying that. And most underwriters are actually very nice people, and they're first-class pros. But they are very sterile and rigid when it comes to They just want to look at numbers. They want to look at you in the most sterile way possible. And if you run a pristine law firm that's been in business for a long time and has had no claims, well, you've earned that right. You're going to look perfect as far as the numbers go, and it's all put in the baggie and mix it up, and it's beautiful. But a lot of law firm, when you're talking about your question, Jared, to put it together, tell the story, and that the expert will then go to the underwriters, and you can work that down. So yes, your point is well taken. It's an excellent question. Yeah, it can be done. It can certainly be done. Yep.
All right. So one thing you talked about in the first part of the show is coverage gaps. And I kind of want to address that a little bit, but also talk about riders. There are different policy riders available for malpractice insurance, including business interruption. So if your firm gets shut down for a period of time, you're covered. I know that there is now data breach insurance available, which is essentially if you suffer a data breach, you can get insurance coverage for that, because that can get expensive with state notice requirements. What do you recommend to people in terms of different riders that they should at least consider? And to what extent do those fill the coverage gaps you were talking about previously?
Oh, sure. So on professional liability, there's two that come to play. And again, everyone listening, law firm owners listening, there's more to your protecting your practice than professional liability offers. So many law firm owners think, okay, great, I got the professional liability. That's wonderful. I commend you for that. But then there's the office business insurance where you can have driving liability, because if you think about it, almost every law firm owner has got staff or themselves, the owner who's driving to meet clients, to go to the airport, to go to a seminar, to go locally to a seminar, to go to the post office, to do this, to do that. You're always driving, and your personal auto will be primary. But if you have something above that, it's catastrophic, especially if you have staff. How do you know if your staff, the boyfriend and the girlfriend are fighting, she left, then the insurance didn't get paid, and now you've got, or he left, and she's driving around with no car insurance. She gets into an accident, going to pick up lunch for the office. Your firm is getting named in that. And if you don't have coverage, then they're going to garnish your future wages. So, I mean, there's a whole litany of things. So there's an example. But let's start with professional liability. One, you should have an endorsement called FDD, the acronym FDD, First Dollar Defense. What that means is this. If you get a meritless lawsuit brought against you, the only time you would pay your deductible is if you are determined to be wrong. So someone at your office goofed, whether it be you as the law firm owner or one of your staff, you just made a mistake, okay? There was a mistake made. Of course, it wasn't intentional. Most deductibles, $5,000 is the average. Some are $2,500. Some are as low as $1,000. Some of your bigger firms, will be $10,000, $25,000 up, depending on the size of the firm and how many lawyers, because it becomes a self-insured and a premium savings type mentality. But let's use $5,000 as the average deductible. If you don't have that endorsement known as first dollar defense, and some disgruntled client who owes you 20 or 30%, you got, you want 40, and you go to get 20 at the end, and they refuse to pay, and you're owed $4,000, for example, and they refuse to pay, and you continue to send them bills till you finally threaten, to take them to litigate to get your rightfully deserved last 20%. In that case, you know what they'll turn around and do? They will file a malpractice or a professional liability claim against you, saying the reason I'm not paying this bum is because he or she or they didn't do a good job. I ain't paying them. And that's where you get, now they sue you for that as a defense to skate out of that last 20%. And if you don't have that first dollar defense, you just expose yourself to another $5,000. Not only you're not going to get your $4,000, but now you just incurred $5,000 of expense. So the point is that you want to get what is known as first dollar defense. That's one of two. The other one is what is the acronym is CEOL versus CEIL. Claims expense, CE, claims expense. I is inside, O is outside limits. So CEOL is what you want, claims expense outside limits. What that means is this, that if you have $1 million limit and you've got CEIL, inside limits, and you get brought, litigation is brought against your firm on a professional basis, professional liability basis, and you incur $250,000 of legal costs during, this, and you're found to be, negligent, and you get $1 million suit, you think, hey, I've got $1 million protection, I'm good. Wrong. That $250,000, if you've got CEIL, inside limits, is subtracted from your $1 million limit. You don't need to be a math genius to figure out that only leaves you $750,000. Guess who's paying the other $250,000? You are, out of your own pocket. So in this case, when you get claims expense outside limits, that is going to give you match the limit of liability that you have. So your liability limit is not eroded, Jared.
Oh, okay.
And that's a huge deal. So, and then moving along, as you said, the office business insurance, I talked about the driving liability.
Yep.
The two other things that should be on there are going to be data breach. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're a bigger firm or you've got great worries about viruses, you can get a standalone cyber liability policy. But if you're a smaller firm, for a couple $100 a year, you can put $100,000 on there and get data breach to protect your clients. It gives them credit repair and all that. But if you're a firm that you're doing revenues, let's say, I always like to use $500,000 or more. Beasley writes a policy. You can't buy it on the internet. You've got to get it through. Obviously, we sell it. But for $1 million of protection, it's $1,010 a year. It's the best contract. It's specifically for law firms. It's a beautiful thing. Now, bigger firms that have bigger exposure, the premium's greater. But for anyone who's doing under, $1.5 million in annual sales, it's going to be the $1,010 a year. It gives you virus protection. It's only $1,000 deductible. It's the best thing going. And and anyone who's doing over $500,000 to, let's say, any amount, but you could be up to $20 million a year. The Beasley policy is the best. Beazley, Beasley. You got to get through. If you like a local broker, they can't even screw that one up, even if they're not an expert. And that's a 10% commissionable product. I mean, do we write it all day long? We've got hundreds, if not thousands, of those written. But it's not. I'd love to earn your business. Leading with that. We do it all day long. You wouldn't be an inconvenience. We'd love it. But, again, if we're, at 10% commission, if you want to work with your local broker who you like and you see at Mass or Temple or wherever, country club, neighborhood, whatever, I totally get it. And, I won't be offended. That's why I'm gladly sharing these tidbits.
No, this is really interesting. I've never heard of this policy or this broker before. So I thought you were talking about Pam Beasley from The Office for a little bit, but clearly not.
Oh, yeah, Pam Beasley. Oh, yeah.
This is different.
Yeah. And now you're going to remind me of the Kevin episode after she had the baby. Wah, wah.
I love The Office.
If you're an Office fan, you'll get that. If you're not, you will think too that Jared and I are crazy. But
only people who like The Office listen to this podcast.
That's what you said.
Beautiful. It is our policy, unfortunately, to pause before we come back for part 3 of this show. Now, while I look for my roof rake, listen to these words from our sponsors. Imagine billing day being the happiest day of the month instead of the day you dread. Nobody went to law school because they love drafting invoices for clients. At TimeSolve, our attorneys save on average over 8 hours a month in billing work. That means more billable time and turning billing day into happy day. Learn more about how to get to your time and billing happy place at timesolve.com. That's www.timesolv.com. Remember, that's timesolv.com. Is your firm experiencing missed calls, empty voicemail boxes, and potential clients you'll never hear from again? Enter Answer One Virtual Receptionists. They're more than just an answering service. Answer One's available 24/7. They can even schedule appointments, respond to emails, integrate with Clio, and much more. Answer One helps make sure your clients have the experience they deserve. Give them a call yourself at 800-ANSWER1 or visit them at answer1.com/podcast for a special offer. Hey, thanks for coming back again. I hope you enjoyed your eggplant parm. I don't. I hate eggplants. Let's get back to our conversation with Michael Carroll of Insuring Lawyer, who's talking to me about malpractice coverage. What do you need? How do you get it? Let's find out more during this last segment of our show. I think one of the most vexing questions about insurance generally is how much coverage you should get. And we've talked a little bit about this, but I always try to blow out my policies, just whatever, auto insurance, professional insurance, just in case there's another meteor strike that kills the dinosaurs, or us in this case. But I always have this nagging feeling that I'm paying too much for insurance. So we talked a little bit about this and kind of danced around it, but as an attorney, like how can you feel comfortable about the coverage limits you have and that you're also paying enough, but not too much?
Excellent question. So the first thing you always want to do, let's face it, law firm owners, you're never going to meet anyone who's destitute. You may have some that are into what I'll term the doctrine of misery, where, they want to give away free legal advice, allow people to extend, credit where then they don't collect anything and they're grinding out a living, working 80 hours a week, their marriage is suffering, and life is just generally bad as a rule of thumb. But, I don't think there'll be a lot of people listening. If you're one of those people, get with Jared ASAP. Your life will change overnight. That isn't the way. No law firm owner. I speak, my oldest son is in law school, and, being around the greats of, he's at Cleveland State. He's first-year law student, so he's reading,
That's cool.
His eyeballs out. But he's doing well. He's in the top 30 of his class, and he's not happy with that. He wants to be in the top 10. He's a competitive kid. But,
Good.
Anyway, well, he likes it a lot, though, and he's excited. But it's due to the Jared Correias of the world that my son wanted to get into law school, and my experience protecting law firms.
Good. I'll be a first.
I told him, that's a true story. And he said, when the NFL was not in his future, injuries ruined his college career, he said, Dad, what am I going to do with my life? I spent my whole life thinking I was going to make the pros. A fine dream for any young star athlete coming out of high school that earns a scholarship to play in college. But, it's the odds are against that. But you don't want to rain on a kid's parade. Someone's got to be the next Tom Brady. Why shouldn't it be my son? But, my son was a tight end. So the next Rob Gronkowski, let's say. And, what it came down to is I said, there's not a better profession or better collective community group of people than law firm owners. I said, nothing against, people working corporate law, but he's seen the life of an entrepreneur with me. And he said, I want to be that, Dad. And he said, law sounds like it for me. And he said, insurance, Dad, I love you. Don't take this the wrong way, but man, that seems boring. That's that. No one ever, and you will never hear me, someone who loves it. And I've, 32 years, and it's made me a wealthy man, and it's my thing, if you will. But the point is very simply that it isn't sexy and it isn't glamorous. So I'm good with that. I'm not offended by any stretch. And law is exciting and it can be great. So ultimately what it comes down to is, back to your question, the first thing we need to do is you need to say, this is not going to lead with price, because as a law firm owner, I've worked my tail off to get where I am. And I cannot risk anything out of my control taking one penny away from that. So if I need to cut going out to lunch once a month, or whatever it may be, I must protect. And again, we talked about that earlier. We danced around, but I'll be crystal clear now. Whatever your revenues are, that's just a basic 101 type insurance. And you should have more, but just cover at least protect to the same limit. So you do $500,000 in revenues, get $500,000 of professional liability or malpractice, whatever you like to call it. If you're doing $1 million, do $1 million. If you're doing $750,000, go up to $1 million. Because they sell it in increments of $100,000, $250,000, $500,000, and then $1 million. There's a few companies that do $750,000, but rare and few and far between. Not national companies. So, and then you can go $2 million, $3 million, and right down the line. But my point is that. So that's number one. Number two is then when you're working with an expert, there's pricing disparity. So you want to say, someone like Insuring Lawyer, that's us, obviously. We've got a contract. We have direct contracts. We have an exclusive program with Hanover, for all those Boston diehards. That's right there in Worcester.
That's right. That's right.
And pronounce, to the rest of the country, Worcester, but Worcester, as they pronounce it in the Boston area. And, also home of Holy Cross, the Crusaders, and Tommy Heinsohn and Bob Cousy. But now I'm really dating myself.
Yes.
But my point is that we have an exclusive contract with them, and there are companies out there that are very, very price competitive. And if you've got a broker, an expert in that industry, like I am for law firm owners, if price is a consideration, I've got some companies, but their claims may be a little less responsive. Not that they're not going to pay your claim, but some law firm owners want the white glove, elite, all-inclusive. Hanover writes a contract like that. Their claims, they will come out and they'll wash your car and shine your shoes. I mean, has nothing to do with your professional liability claim. and they're willing to pay a little. And they're actually, their market price, they're slightly above average, price-wise. But then there's companies out there like Imperium that just give it away. But then how long are they going to give it away? And their claims aren't as good as a compliment to Hanover, not a cut on Imperium. Their claims aren't as responsive, and you don't get the white glove and this and that. So it's really what it comes to. And sometimes I've owned a business for 32 years. Any business owner that doesn't say at some point in their career, like, holy smokes, payroll's on Friday, what in the world am I going to do, is a liar. Or someone who's, independently rich. I mean, we've all been there, at points in our career, and it's usually toward the beginning than down the road, But my point is very simply, there's ways to do that. But it's just to really have a broker who has a wide access, someone who specializes with law firms, who has access to really all the legitimate players out there, from the low ball to, again, if you're going to buy a Bentley, you're going to get the ultimate ride, or a Benz or a Cadillac, whatever, floats your boat as far as Rolls Royce, as far as fancy cars. And if you're going to buy a Hyundai, which is an excellent car, it sponsors the National Basketball Association. They're their big sponsor. I mean, they're not garbage cars, but there's a little difference between the two. And, they both get you from A to B. It's just what do you want your buying experience to be?
All right. So I get this question a lot from people. So I want to ask you, can you tell folks what tail coverage is and why it's important to have that?
So tail coverage is, and it's a big misnomer. People think that when they switch from company A to B, they've been with Joe or Jane broker for 12 years.
Yeah.
And they're like, I haven't heard from Jane or Joe broker in, 10 of those years. I'm not even sure if they're alive. I'll hear that. And then they hear me at an ABA event, or they hear me at on this podcast with you, Jared, or at an R. John Robbins, How to Manage a Small Law Firm event, or Richard James, whoever. All these great people, you at the top of that list. And they hear me and they're like, I like this guy. I've read his book. He's, he wrote the book on it. Then they think I've got to get tail coverage when I switch. So when you switch from company A to company B, your prior act date can go back to day one. So if you began your professional liability on April 1st of, 1987, it just continues on. Okay. You don't need to go from company A and B to C and C to D in that 32-year period going 87 to 2019. You don't need tail coverage. But tail coverage, or the technical term is known, the acronym is ERP, Extended Reporting Period. What that is when you wind down your law firm, whether it be retirement, whatever the case may be, or you're closing it and you're joining another firm, you're creating a new firm, but you wind it down. And what that is, you want to get, to me, I would get the unlimited. And it's based on, like, if you get a 1 year, they're going to charge you 1 year's premium. If you get 2 years, they're going to charge you like a year and a half's premium. If you get 3 years, they're going to charge you like 2 years premium. Then if you get the unlimited, they're going to charge you 3 years premium. And they allow you to finance. So if you and I, Jared, own a law firm, and we were personal injury guys, and we killed it. We made,
that would be an amazing law firm.
Tens of millions of dollars. It would be. We would we'd own it. Yeah, you got it. We'd be doing it. But we made tens of millions, and now we want to, invest in, we buy the Celtics, okay, and we're going to get rid of Kyrie.
I like where this is going.
The point is, or we're going to get guys that can play with them, or whatever. The point is very simply that we'd wind down our law firm, and we would, buy, if we were paying $20,000 a year, if we were doing it like that, the premium would probably be $100,000 a year, but we would get, it'd be 3 years times the premium. But if it's just simple math, if you're paying the average, if you're paying $3,000 a year and you want to get the unlimited, you'd have a $9,000 premium. They'll let you finance it, and that's that. But it is critical, because you don't want that to follow you into your retirement, and then you get a suit, and they personally can collect. It's not a good idea at all.
That's great. That's one of the better explanations I've ever heard on that. Now, I have one last question for you. So I was on TripAdvisor last night, and they told me that the best thing to do in Maumee, Ohio, and I hope the hell I'm pronouncing that right, is to take a trip to the Toledo Museum of Art. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I'm a meathead, so of course I'm going to disagree. To me, it's all about, of course, the listeners have figured out this guy's he's a big meathead that loves sports. You're correct. I'm not a complex guy. pretty easy to figure out. So I would say, I mean, the Toledo Museum of Art is superb. It is a nationally known, I mean, it's well received or known in the country, but I just can't sit still that long, and art is not my thing. But the Toledo Zoo is considered to be one of the top 3 or 4 zoos in the country, with I think like the San Diego Zoo and maybe the St. Louis Zoo. So the Toledo Zoo is a big deal. And Maumee is a suburb. It borders, right? Like I'm talking from my home office in Toledo, but on River Road, but 2.2 miles down River Road is my office in Maumee, Ohio. So it's you know, the Maumee border is one. So Toledo and Maumee are the same. It's a small community. The Toledo Mud Hens used to play in Maumee, Ohio.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It was known as, the Lucas County Rec Center, but now they're in downtown Toledo. Like most, you know, cities, they've made a big comeback. Rust Belt cities have made a big comeback. So the Mud Hens play in downtown. It's at Fifth Third, you know, the big bank. They call it Fifth Third Park. And it's a family type thing. But I worked, by the way, 6 years as a kid, Toledo Mud Hens ground crew. So from 16 to 22.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. So I got to meet, you know, it was a great job for a meathead because they had a basketball hoop so I could work on my game, you know, keep sharp. And I got to play with Danny Ainge when he was with Syracuse, and Kirby Puckett, you know,
that's
was
really
just
cool.
The only kid I ever met from the hood in Chicago who couldn't play basketball. God rest his soul. He was a Hall of Fame baseball player, but
terrible basketball player.
The worst basketball player I've never seen. I mean, my college roommate, Calvin Upshaw, played about 10 years in the NBA. Every kid from the south side of Chicago can hoop. Not Kirby Puckett. He couldn't hoop at all. He's the one guy. But what I'll tell you what he lacked in basketball, he made up in baseball. I mean, first ballot Hall of Famer, and God rest his soul. But just a neat job as a kid. So anyway, but you got a TripAdvisor, Maumee, Ohio.
Toledo Art Museum, and take in a Mud Hens game. That's great.
There you go.
Sadly, everyone, we've reached the end of yet another episode of the Legal Toolkit podcast. This was the podcast about malpractice insurance and Boston sports. And we've been talking with Mike Carroll of Insuring Lawyer. Now, I'll be back on further shows with insights into my soul, the soul of America, and the legal market. But if you miss my dulcet tones at any point, feel free to check out our entire show archive at LegalTalkNetwork.com. So thanks again to Michael Carroll of Insuring Lawyer for making an appearance as my guest today. All right, Michael, can you tell everyone how they can find out more about you and about Insuring Lawyer?
Absolutely. Thank you again, Jared, for having me. And anytime, you want to get in touch with me, my direct number at my office, it rings directly to me, is 419-469-6886. My email is michael@Insuring Lawyer, just like it sounds, INSURING lawyer.com. And of course, the website would be insuringlawyer.com. And then when you go to the website, everyone listening, I will gladly mail you a copy of my book. This isn't an ebook. It's a real live hard copy. You'll be able to read it in a couple hours. And you'll enjoy it. I haven't had anyone say it's stupid, except for an underwriter. And when underwriters said it was stupid, I knew I'd hit a home run. So law firm owners have found it to be useful, and what have you. But you can get a copy of The Naked Lawyer by going right to the website, insuringlawyer.com. Please request a copy. I'll mail it. You'll enjoy it, and I'd love nothing more. I'll take the time and expense to do so, and that's everything. And again, what a pleasure it is to be a guest on your show, Jared. I can't thank you enough. And law firm owners out there listening, be relentless.
Yeah, I like that. Get that book too. So, Mike, I just wanted to talk about one more thing. I think that you do a tremendous job every year with a cancer research fundraiser that you put on. And I'm not sure about the timing of the release of this show, whether it's going to be out before the 2019 NCAA men's basketball tournament. But you do great work with this. I just wanted to give you a second to talk a little bit about that as well.
Thanks. Yeah, Coach. So as a young man, I was actually, the first time I met Coach Valvano, I was at Holy Cross basketball camp where my father's a graduate in 56. His roommate and dear friend to this day was Tommy Heinsohn. And again, for Boston people know Tommy, of course. He's an all-time great Hall of Famer as a coach and a player, considered to be one of the 50 greatest players ever. But I was in the 6th grade. I was the MVP of that thing. And there's these two, high-energy paisans. And remember, I've shared my mother's from Sicily. So I've been looking more, even though Michael Patrick Carroll is as Irish as they come, my father's 100% Irish. Yeah, I look more Italian than Irish. So they came up and they said, "Hey, are you Italian?" I said, "My mother's from Sicily." "Get out of here." this and that. Well, the two guys were none other than Dick Vitale, Dickie V, and Jim Valvano.
Oh, that's
and
funny.
Dick Vitale was at the University of Detroit at the time, where he had great success. And, of course, Jim Valvano was at Iona, where he had great success. And he went on to win a championship at NC State. But so that began a relationship with Coach Valvano. I wasn't good enough to play in the ACC, which back in the day, was like the NBA. I mean, it was the top league. But even though I was good enough to earn a scholarship, it was a situation where we ended up staying in touch. And so when Coach got sick and died, that was very personal to me. And that was 1993 when he passed. And he had that great speech a month or so before he passed at the ESPYs. To me, you got to give it away to keep it. It's important to give back. So I said, I love basketball, both pro and college. And what greater way to do it than during the basketball tournament? So we've done it. The website, if you ever want to start a charity, everyone listening, it isn't that hard, and you pray about it and you put your heart into it. But the website is Jimmy V, like Jim Valvano, Jimmy V, JMMY, V for Valvano, marchmadness.com. And the event, we do it the Sweet 16 weekend. We do a big shindig. I get many clients and people that donate, throughout the country, what have you. But a lot come locally. Some fly in for the event. But our goal is to raise $100,000 every year, and this will be our 19th year. And we've raised, we'll be sneaking up on. We've got to be sneaking up on, close to $1 million. We've
That's
given.
fantastic.
And it started small, and we've grown. So yeah, and one last thing, ironically enough, 3 years ago, my wife Cheryl contracted breast cancer, and who would have ever thought? Beautiful, works out, no predisposition, nothing in her.
Yeah.
I'm not being kind. I mean, she looks like she's in her 30s at 53, and she contracted it. And isn't that the irony? So then it became crazy personal. But Coach Valvano, I knew at some level, but I mean, this is the mother of our children, and the kids, and everything. I mean, that's a very sobering thing for those of you that have had to watch someone you love with all your heart go through that. And it's just, cancer there's so many great causes, whatever you do, and the V Foundation will partner with you, your local community. They're the leading researchers. 93 cents of every dollar goes toward cancer research. So if you love sports and you want to give back and you feel a calling to do something bigger than yourself, I would highly suggest, I'll put you in touch. Reach out for me. That I love the V Foundation for the aforementioned reasons, and you'll just get a better quality of life. Even though it's a lot of work, it's not a lot of work. I never get bummed out. I never get worn out. I never think, man, that's the last year I'm doing this. This is getting out of control. I've just added more board members, and we've just grown.
Yeah.
Even though I'm still considered the founder, it's becomes, I've got younger men and women who are now stepping up. The next generation. I'm 55. I'm not planning on going anywhere, but it's bring others into it. Let them share in the greatness of giving back, and it's been the most gratifying thing I've done on a selfless basis, other than being a parent and and such, and a husband, I guess. But you can bring Cheryl back to see how selfless I've been as a husband. I think she would say selfish is what he is, folks. Selfish, but that's another topic for another day. But
I've done podcasts with my wife before. Not a great idea. No, but that's great. Like I love seeing money go to cancer research. The more, the better. What was that website again?
Jimmy V, just like JIMMY, Jimmy V, marchmadness.com. Visit it if you want to start the charity. I will give you all the time in the world and tell you. I'll send you my playbook, the whole thing, and it's all for the right cause. And you could do it for autism if you've got a family member, Alzheimer's. It's the same concept. I don't know who the big organizations are in the autism and the Alzheimer's world, but it's the same concept of how you can start an event and do something that's going to have a legacy, beyond you, because that money is going to help find a cure for whatever is near and dear to your heart, and you'll leave the world a better place. And that, to me, as corny as it sounds, it's the truth. And that's been, like I said, the most gratifying, selfless thing I've done in my life. And I was told you got to give it away to keep it. My folks told me, if you're going to do well in life, now you got to turn it around and spread the wealth in that, and do something that isn't about making money. Do something to make the world a better place. Not that making money is a bad thing or an evil thing. Nothing wrong with being successful, but then take the time to give back to people who are suffering or less fortunate. And, some people live a lifestyle where they're going to cause cancer to themselves, but most people don't. And, it could happen to any of us. And when it does happen to someone you love and care about, like I've had a front row seat with Cheryl, the good news is she's kicking cancer's tail. I mean, she is, if you Google Cheryl Carroll, Cheryl, you'll say there's no way that woman had cancer. She looks like a Kardashian. And for all the guys out there that like pretty women, just go see her. That'll be worth your time. And the fashionable women, you'll like seeing her because she's a fashionista, but she's a superstar in her own right. But women like her and men like her that have fought and survived cancer, it's beyond courageous. And guys like Stuart Scott from ESPN and Jim Valvano, they didn't lose to cancer. They just lied down to rest. And it's up to people like us to carry on that fight. So therefore, we'll eradicate the world of cancer. And all the cynics, they'll never find a cure. It's a game system. I mean, it is like chasing ghosts. Cancer is extremely frustrating. But, what are you going to do? Just not try? I mean, come on. We got to keep, there's so much greatness and brilliance out there that I believe in my heart of hearts that people are going to find a cure for cancer. And I believe in those, geniuses and those intellects in that world of research that they found many cures. I believe they're someday going to find a cure for them all. So we'll keep busting our buns to get that done.
That's a good note to end it on. I think your wife is going to be very happy about that. So thanks again to Michael Carroll of Insuring Lawyer. Finally, thanks to all of you out there for listening. This has been the Legal Toolkit podcast, where we're only renewing our HBO Now subscription so we can watch the last season of Game of Thrones.
Thanks for listening to Legal Toolkit, produced by the broadcast professionals at Legal Talk Network. Join host Jared Correia for his next podcast covering the current business trends for law firms. If you'd like more information about today's show, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. Subscribe via iTunes and RSS. Find Legal Talk Network on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Or download the free app from Legal Talk Network in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.